I was asked today to talk about our culture here at Martin Guitars, and I've given it some thought, and you'll hear from me. You'll get to hear from Debbie Karlowich, the Vice President of Human Resources. Debbie and I, amazingly enough, were hired on the same day, the same year, a few years ago, and we've been here ever since. You're going to hear from Randy Wagner, who's been here a long time, and Randy's a good friend of mine, and Sean Brendel, a new employee, and you'll get their perspective. So what I thought about was the culture that I inherited. I didn't know CF Senior, I didn't know CF Junior, I didn't know Frank Henry, I didn't unfortunately get to know Frank Herbert because he died way too young. But I did get to know my grandfather and my father. And my parents were divorced, so I didn't grow up here. I didn't grow up in the family business, but I would come back and visit. And the more I came back to visit, the more interested I became in what was going on here. And eventually, I was very fortunate to be able to live with both my father, I know that sounds odd, but because I didn't grow up with him, and my grandfather. And I particularly remember spending time with my grandfather in his den after work. He would come in, do his chairman CEO thing. I would come in, I was working either out in the shop or in the office, or I would travel a lot. I was going to college, working, but while I was going to community college, I lived with my grandfather. And those conversations we would have in his den in the evening, if we weren't watching basketball, which was one of his favorites, he would talk about what he thought the business meant. Not just about the guitar, not just about the quality of the construction or the tone, which were important to me, again, because I didn't grow up here, but about the culture. And he never really used that term, but he talked about what he thought it meant to run a business where you weren't a sole proprietorship. This is a business of many people. Many people helped me to make the Martin Guitars. You may have heard me say in the past that after my stint out in the shop, I came to the realization that my highest and best use is in the office. I'm a little clumsy with a chisel, but I learned a great deal of respect for my colleagues that craft the guitars every day. And he talked about how important he thought it was to take care of your coworkers, to create an environment that they felt comfortable in, that they were encouraged to perform, and that if there was a performance issue, that you handled it very delicately. So what I inherited was a business that was struggling. There were many dedicated people here. The market was soft. The business had way too much debt. And honestly, it was a bit of a mess. My grandfather passed away. My father retired. He moved to Florida. And I came in. I was scared to death. I did have the benefit of, again, having spent some time out in the shop, going to trade shows, and getting an education in business. So I understood the language of business, but I had very little practical experience applying it. And so one of the things I did for myself is I went on Outward Bound. And that was a great experience. It helped me, it gave me confidence that I could be a leader. It also helped me understand the value of team building and teamwork. And I have since shared that experience with, I don't know, probably 500 of my coworkers. We go out once or twice a year on a week-long Outward Bound expedition. And we work on team building, but more importantly, I get to know them in a way that I never would. And they get to know me in a way that they never would. And we realize that, hey, we're all human, we're all in this together, and we spend time talking about what does this business mean? What is it all about? And it always comes back to quality and excellence and striving, trying to be the best. And we're human. I like to say that we're closer than we've ever been to building the perfect guitar. We try every time we build a guitar to make it perfectly. We're human. I'm sure God would look at it and say, close, but because you're human, it's slightly flawed, and that's just the nature of the human condition. But that's what we share. We share this goal, this idea, to make the best of its kind. We spend, Monday through Friday, we spend half of our waking day here. And I like to think that if you have to work, and most of us do, not only do you have to work, you want to work. And I believe that everyone who works here wants to work here. They want to be here. They want to work for a company that makes the best of its kind. We're not perfect. We have challenges. The culture evolves. That's one of the things I get criticized. They say, Chris, be careful you don't keep 2 feet planted in the past. And I'm very conscious of that. I know there's a firm foundation. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we also have to look towards the future. The culture has to evolve. We have new employees. They're from different generations. They have different perspectives on what's important in life. Speaking of families, boy, do we have a lot of families here. We hire family. I know some companies don't. We do, of course, have a rule which companies that hire families have. Family cannot report directly to family, and that's just to, keep everything so that, there's no arguing at the dinner table. But boy, I've even joked, I said, if we ever did a family tree of all the relationships that the employees have, it would be three-dimensional. Mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, cousin, on and on and on and on. And it's worked out well. Milt Hess, the other day, we were on a CBS morning show together, and he was interviewed, and I said, Milt, you've been here a long time? He said, yeah, I've been here about 40 years. And I said, your dad worked here? He said, yeah. And he said very proudly, he said, so do my two sons. It's a very special place. I'm conscious of that. I appreciate the support you give us. And Mexico, we have a factory in Mexico, and my Mexican coworkers, many of whom have been there 5, 10, 15, even 20 years, feel as strongly about the Martin brand and the reputation it has for quality product, and they care. They understand they're making something more affordable that many of you appreciate, but they want to make the best, more affordable Martin guitars the world has ever seen. And we'll make all our strings down there. Every one of the strings that say Martin on them is made in our Mexican factory by people that are really proud to work for the Martin Guitar Company and to make the best acoustic guitar strings in the world. So I'm going to turn it over to Debbie. Debbie and I work together every day, and I think she'll be able to give you a very interesting perspective on her few years of living the Martin culture. Thanks.
My name is Debbie Karlowicz, and I am the Vice President of Human Resources at the Martin Guitar Company. I've been employed by the Martin Guitar Company for 38 plus years. Our culture has been built on very basic operating values. We treat all coworkers with dignity and respect. We recognize the value of teamwork. We work well together as a team. We support each other in good times and in challenging times. I would like to go back to 1986, 87 actually, when Chris Martin took over as CEO of the company. Chris recognized the value of teamwork in this organization. He recognized that the true way to success is all of us working together towards a shared vision. So he implemented a profit-sharing plan. And this profit-sharing plan recognizes the contributions of all coworkers on a quarterly basis with a bonus. And I'm very happy to report that that profit-sharing plan is still in existence today. We value diversity at the Martin Guitar Company. I would like to give you an example. Early, I believe it was in the 1990s, we started working with an organization in the Lehigh Valley to employ individuals with disabilities. This relationship continues today. Very, very successful relationship. We believe in investing in coworker development. We want to be able to provide opportunities for advancement for our coworkers in this organization, so we invest in training programs for all coworkers. If you want to experience the Martin culture firsthand, I would recommend that you come and tour this facility. From the moment you step through the front door till the end of that plant tour, you will see and feel the pride and dedication of our coworkers in producing quality product and delivering first-class customer service.
My name's Randy Wagner. I'm starting my 19th year with the company. I work in the machine room where we basically make all the internal parts for the instruments. This Martin story, it's a story of family, the Martin family, and in some respects it can be blood family, which for me, I was almost born into it. My father started working at Martin Guitar as a young man, just barely a teenager. Spent 47 years with the company, and so I grew up around it. I had neighbors, friends, children of friends that were all connected to here. So pretty much everything of my growing up, what I wore and what we ate came from Martin Guitar, and we were taught that. So I spoke a little of my father working here and some neighbors, and it really went a lot further than that, and as the years rolled on, it got even deeper. Like my aunt worked here. I have like a shirt-tail third cousin that works here. My wife's sister, my wife's brother. So it's pretty extended, you know, and I'm not the only one. There's quite a few different individuals throughout the factory that have multiple relatives and spouses working here, children. It's a pretty unique atmosphere too. You know, it's revolved from around the area. Really, most of the people came from right here, Bushkill Township, Nazareth, Pennsylvania. And now it's grown to, there's people working here from all over the country. And we've changed in many ways with how we do things. You can go around the plant and see lots of technology today. Anything from lasers to CNC routers, robotic arms, but you can also still walk past a fellow with a high glue pot and a paintbrush putting parts together. Pretty interesting. We've upheld the whole tradition of doing this by hand and incorporated it with manufacturing in a modern era, and we've held up the quality end really well. And it shows up, there's the history of just the instruments, they just perpetuate themselves. You can look at an instrument like Hank Williams' guitar, which is now owned by Neil Young, who did an awesome album on it called Prairie Wind a few years back. The guitar itself has a life of its own, it's going forward. You can look at Clarence White's guitar and all the history he made with it, and now Tony Rice plays it and carries it on, making awesome music with it. So our company keeps going forward, and we've stood the test of time. It's proven we're still here. And even in a bad economy, we find a way to keep it rolling to the point where we actually need to hire people. And my wife and I, who've both been here quite a while now, have taken to these new kids. And it's pretty interesting that they've been able to hire new hires, most of them in their 20s, early 30s, and they already understand what goes on here before they ever got here. They know it's important. They know what we do is important. Probably 80% of them play instruments. All of the ones I hang around with do, and they're in bands. It's pretty incredible that we're able to find this caliber of people to continue carrying this on.
After I was hired here a year and a half ago, it was a great experience starting out here, and it was a little intimidating coming in here because I'm familiar with guitar. I play guitar and drums, and woodworking too. I was familiar with that. But working on these high-end instruments was kind of intimidating, but everybody here, all the tenured craftsmen here, they kind of like just welcome in with like open arms and they really help you out. I know you saw Randy Wagner here. Great guy, helped me out a lot. I worked with him from the beginning. I started here, and he helped me through a lot of things here. In the custom shop, I do a lot of the pearl inlay work along with neck shaping. For me personally, I think the neck is one of the most important parts of the guitar, especially for the player, because the player is the one who's going to have their hands running up and down the neck. It has to feel smooth for their hands and just right for the shape. The Martin culture to me, it's, I grew up in Nazareth. I've been here basically my whole life. When I was like 12 years old, I used to come to the factory and play guitar, in the little lobby, and just kind of grew up loving music. I went to school for music, and now I'm just lucky to say I love my job. I get to work with music, woodworking. For me, I grew up with my grandfather. He taught me how to do basically everything he knew with woodworking. So I got all my skills from him, and landing the job at Martin was just almost like a dream come true for me.
So if you really want to experience the Martin culture, come and visit. Come and see us. Come spend an hour in the museum, take the factory tour, and I got to tell you, and I'm so proud when people tell me after they take the tour, they said, Chris, I've taken other factory tours. Your employees seem happy. And I'm like, well, yeah. And they go, but in other factories, they don't seem happy. And I'm like, really? What's that all about? So come and visit us. Thanks.